This is Aisha, and I'm here uh, as a representative of Cosmic Tribe. I'm actually the co-founder, and hi, Chris. So today we have Chris as a visual artist, and we're going to talk to him and know more about his practice and why he does what he does, and maybe get more insight into his personal practice, his influences, since we are having this special week, dark skies related. So we thought to include Chris because his practice is very relevant and he is working in the domain of astronomy and different forms of art. By what I've seen, he is an amazing painter, and today we will know more about his practice. So, hi, Chris. Uh, Please tell us more about generally who you are as a person and your artistic practice, and just tell us about your practice and where is the influence coming from in your work.
Well, I am from Huntsville, Alabama, in the United States, also known as the Rocket City, where we have NASA. So I've always seen, I've always seen, rockets towering over the highway as we drive by, and we had the Space and Rocket Center down the street. But when I was in college, I started having a lot of recurring dreams of finding abandoned rockets. And so, like the world in my dreams, it feels a lot more exciting than everyday life. And I've always been fascinated with the stars. I've always been fascinated with space, whether I'm writing music or painting. And I've always been a bit of a dreamer, and you know, drawing in class with my head in the clouds, that kind of guy. So, you know, when I was in college, I started having a bunch of recurring dreams of finding abandoned rockets in the woods. And, but it was always really exciting. It was very, mysterious, ominous, but fun and exciting, like discovering something amazing. And it just got me fascinated with, the idea of exploring what it would be like if I were to find that in the woods. And, I'd probably want to build a tree house out of it. And then I started, you know, illustrating these kind of whimsical, goofy treehouse cities made out of rockets, kind of like the Ewok village in Star Wars. But and then including just that childlike side of things, you know, started to include childlike color palettes where everything was very vivid and exciting, and kind of a throwback to the color palettes that I used to enjoy when I was a kid. And so my idea behind my work kind of became to use my art as a way to take people back to the way they felt as a kid and kind of get them, remind them of what it felt like to imagine the world completely different than imagine the world the way they saw it as a kid. And yeah.
So yeah, because when I was looking at your work, and as you mentioned that you have this childlike imagery integrated with space art, right? So when you're working and you're working with colorful imagery side by side with very scientific kind of information which is based on stars, so how do you create that balance, and how important it is for you as an artist to include like factual information or maybe not as part of the work? Like, I'm interested to know, what are you thinking while you're making the work?
Mhm. Um, so in the beginning of the series, when I first started painting rockets in my work, I was pretty concerned about, getting everything as accurate as possible. Um, you know, I kind of get that side from my dad, the whole um, perfectionistic side of things. And then, it would take me a long time to get anything done because I was so consumed with getting it perfect. And
Mhm.
then the further I went,
Mm.
the more it got to where it became fun to explore getting things accurate and all the details. Just I did it because I wanted the artwork to stick out to me personally. But then I started doing real, you know, some more strange, whimsical art, and I realized at the time that I eventually realized that perfectionism was slowing me down and started to make art stressful for me. And so while yes, I do want things to be more accurate, I'm more concerned about the idea getting across. I'm more concerned about the colors and the atmosphere, the vibe that is being communicated through the work. Because my work is not necessarily. I don't want it to necessarily look like concept art for a movie or technical art for a technical manual. Um, I'm I'm honestly more concerned about my work being a vehicle for you know causing people to see the idea and let their imagination go crazy. So my work went from trying to make it extremely detailed to here's to more. I'm starting to include more minimalism in my work where it's more about the color and how much it pops out. It's more about making it a fun experience, I guess, instead of just an illustration.
So do you look at a certain kind of references, like maybe you do go to NASA website a lot, they have some free archives, do you see that? Or maybe do you have an interest of as reading up on the latest updates on the like astronomy or stuff, and that informs your practice? Because yeah, I do understand once like you as an artist would sit in front of canvas, then color and more formal techniques would take over, right? Because this is how you as an artist are working, and then maybe certain factual things are not that much important, but then again your images are like the one right behind you is having some form of details, right? And stars are very precise. So I'm just trying to understand, do you use references? At what point do you stop using references and then it becomes your own imagination? Or how is it
Right.
for you?
I use references so that I know how to paint things accurately. Um, I'll I'll do Google searches all the time for imagery that just really pops out at me, to try and figure out if I'm trying to figure out how to paint a certain thing. Let's say one of my concept sketches that I've got going on right now is that I'm developing are the Saturn V engine test stands. I'm doing a series involving those. So I want to get a picture of that thing from the see if I can find it from the angle that I want to illustrate it at, and then I want to exaggerate that angle a little bit, and then add my own coloration, my own spin to it, my own vibe, and but it's more of like I'll reference things just for the sake of accuracy, and then once I know I got the idea, then I just kind of I let my imagination take over without, you know, I really honestly want to spend as little time referencing things as possible so that I can get that out of the way and let the imagination take hold and um have I want to have fun with it while I paint it. I see that I gotta, yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
we can now see your specific artworks and talk about that.
yeah.
Yeah.
I noticed that he sent a question: did I study space and astronomy for art? Um, I read up on it a lot. I'm fascinated with space and astronomy, space history, rockets, astronauts. I'm on the space hipsters page, and I learn a lot from that. And I watch a lot of sci-fi too. So yeah, but I did take an astronomy class as an
Yeah.
a science elective.
Okay.
Anyway, continue.
Okay. So can you tell us more about like each artwork specifically?
Yeah,
We would love to know where the inspiration is coming from.
yeah. So it's this one's called Lunacy, featuring a Luna 2 probe. And honestly, when I was just doing a Google search, I saw the Luna 2 probe, and I just found it fascinating. And personally, I think that everything Russia or the Soviet Union built as far as rockets goes looked super cool. And so I had it as a picture on my background for a while. And and I thought, I've got to do something with this lunar probe. And this was one of the first ones that I did in my series where I wasn't focused on it having a specific deep theme. Instead I just wanted to, focus on composition and having fun with it and making something super dreamy and fun to paint. It was challenging because, I had the water, the splashing of the water to get right. But that and the probe itself are the things that I actually referenced. Um, I didn't really, I think I spent more time on the water than I did on the actual probe. So, but anyway, it was just a fun exercise of breaking out of my habits of trying to be perfect. So, yeah,
Next slide, yeah.
that is, um, so I got invited to be the featured artist for the Tennessee Valley Interstellar Workshop, and a bunch of space enthusiasts, and they needed a picture to use for the program book cover. Um, so I had they moved the deadline up on me, so I had 1 week to complete it, and I panicked, took the week off from work, and they wanted it to involve DNA, and they said "Ladder to the Stars" was the theme of the show. So I I referenced some DNA and then basically put together just a splatter art, or oops, drop just drops of India ink all over the paper, and then use white acrylic ink to you know put in the DNA. And I just wanted to make something super dreamy, and then I I wanted to make it really bright up at the top, but then it all kind of flowed toward the middle and then collected there, and that's how you end up with that bright star at the top. right in the middle. So kind of a representation of what we're capable of as a human race. You know, how amazing the human creation or what's inside of us really is. You know, it's kind of a spiritual picture. You know, which a lot of my work does have a, you know, spiritual themes to it.
Yeah, I think because the DNA itself and the way you have used it in this artwork is specifically very spiritual, and it is philosophical in a way that, you know, the DNA itself and its usage of literally like the ladder and the way you've used the words. I think it does talk about the future itself and the size and the composition and how this one person is kind of seeing upward and, you know, towards it. Yeah, I think this artwork in specific is very different from others because it has this sense of usage of biology as a
Yeah.
reference and not just astronomy. So are there any other works which also
Well,
refer to
I was
biological reference?
well, I was gonna say with this one, it's also kind of the idea of staring up into, you know, when you're a kid and you have extremely unrealistic um, imagination, and it's amazing. And you know, like that thought of I could climb a tree and climb onto a cloud that I'm seeing, you know, or you know, I could climb the clouds and get to the stars, you know, without realizing that they're way too far away for us to ever actually physically reach. But metaphorically, spiritually, philosophically, um, it's about just dreaming for the impossible, really, or the seemingly impossible. You know, always have it. Yeah, but anyway, you asked if I had any others that I had a biological reference to.
No, I'm
No.
just asking whether like you have done and used any other references, like because for me as an artist, I you know love to take references from biology and anatomy and stuff like that. I think those things are very fascinating. So I was just asking if this is the only piece because I don't know how old this one is, and you mentioned that it was for a specific purpose, right?
Yeah, now there are some that I have started to include, you know, like I'll use references from, you know, aerospace engineering is my main thing that I use references from, but then I like to include, you know, references from astronomy and um, ecology. You know, like I've got some where um, there are silhouettes of trees in the woods, you know, but also want to include the sky and then the metal. So it's like I'm including nature as well as the mechanical as well as the spiritual in this in all of it, you know. So the sky represents that to me. And but in one of mine, the one known as titled TMI, um, it's it I included bioluminescence in it, you know, where I made the tree white instead of dark. I made it glowing. So yeah.
Looking at your work, yeah. So like maybe I can talk later about my views because we have less time, so maybe you can speak.
Oh, do you want what do you want me to do?
No, I'm saying maybe you should continue first because we
Okay,
have less time. So in the end, I can ask more questions once you're done with the presentation.
cool. Yeah, this one was a ballpoint pen drawing. And that's before I started working in watercolor and India ink and acrylic ink. Um, this was a ballpoint drawing, and I just really like the way ballpoint shades. And I had this idea of crossing from this reality into the next reality, kind of in our consciousness or our awareness. You know, the awareness that we live in multiple realities simultaneously. And you know, I did this when I was in my early 20s. I'm 34 now, But I was probably, it was about 8 years ago that I finished this one. So call this one No More Horizon. Yeah.
I really like the way you have used the ballpoint and, you know, created those textures in such detail. It's very different from other, like the previous treatment. And, you know, suddenly, I think because of the change of the medium itself, I think that created that for you, right?
Yeah. I mean, I ended up getting yelled at by one of my teachers for using ballpoint because it's not archival. I didn't know that. But the whole reason I switched over to watercolor was so that I could color in my work
Yeah.
more realistically and much faster than using a ballpoint trying to. I mean, this thing is like 18 inches by 24. So, I mean, it's, you know, it took me
Yeah.
about 2 years to do, but I just wanted something faster. So that's why I switched mediums.
Mm.
So, yeah. This one is TMI, too much information. This is one where I saw a picture of the Galileo probe. And instead of coming up with the idea beforehand and looking up the picture of the probe, I found the picture of the probe in a Google search, and I was like, okay, I saved it. I put it into Photoshop, started, adding branches and just got fascinated with it. And then, and traced over it. And then I printed it and then painted on top of it with acrylic ink. And this is one of those ones where I wanted to make the tree look like it was alive, like it was glowing. And, but the title was kind of a representation of I know too much. I've seen too much in my life to where I don't know what to think or believe anymore. And a lot of times where knowing the wrong thing or knowing the wrong way or the wrong perspective of knowing a thing can cause you to kind of have a mental burnout, if that makes sense. And kind of this perspective of I've forgotten how to dream, but I want to.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway. This was one of the early ones in the rocket series, and I was seeing a lot of people on Instagram do pictures of speed paintings of trees with stars in the sky above. And I thought, I really want to do one that represents the way these rockets in my dreams felt to me. And it was like, okay, I'm going to include the Milky Way and make it really spacey, but I'm going to do the rocket silhouette and the fireflies in the foreground, kind of like almost like the fireflies are mirroring what's going on up in the sky. And um, just a feeling of dreaming. So
Yeah, because like I think this one is done in watercolors as well, right?
this one is done in India ink, and I did the sky. I did the Milky Way in acrylic ink. I
And
have
although
said,
like I can see a lot of colors and it seems very, you know, random, but in a very controlled way, you know. So the medium handling itself, like here it's because the way you got the entire wing of the Milky Way is, I think, very interesting. And since we are on the topic of dark sky, I think this is the perfect representation of it.
yeah. At the bottom, I used salt water,
Okay.
um, and then kind of marbled the ink through it.
Mm.
And instead of salt water's fun to use with ink.
Yeah.
Uh, what medium do you work in?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I work in acrylics, digital. I work with fabrics, textures, you know. I
Yeah.
work in multimedia because mostly my work is in like the illustrations that I do is in watercolors, but then the huge canvases that I do, that's in acrylics and pastels. But
Mm.
now I've recently switched in like digital because I just thought that okay, the traditional mediums have their own limitations and I need to kind of diversify. And I've also been making some cosmic and astronomy inspired art, but in fusion, like the way you do. So
Mm.
it's not entirely factual, but my work also has this medium, like this bridge. It kind of bridges the surrealism with factual science art. So
Right.
that's where I'm trying to create a balance in myself. So that's
Yeah.
why your work also fascinates me because it has the same themes.
Yeah.
But you mentioned, yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's hard to find other people who include the surrealism and the dreamy aspect of things
Yeah.
with the scientific, because most of the people that I know in the scientific art, or the space art kind of
Mm.
side of things, they um, everything. It's very. I'm gonna paint a space scene, or I'm gonna paint a space history scene, and I'm like, I want to do something that's gonna make you feel like a kid again,
Yeah.
or something that kids would go crazy over. You know, I want to do something that involves imagination and not just science or history, So,
I mean, factual art in itself has its own importance and the way it can be used. But I think that if we have astrophotographers and telescopes doing a great job at capturing what is already a possibility in space, then we as artists who are trying to work with concepts and we're trying to think beyond what the information which is already available to us, then I think uh, it's very important to kind of bring some dreamy elements, some imagination, and take
right.
the information that we have to the next level, right?
Yeah.
And this is the idea what may drive me to create cosmic art, to create characters that are inspired from like nebulas. I've been looking into nebulas, and I really like the colors and the splashes, how they mix into each other. And recently I've been working on planetary series, and I did one short film. I mean, yeah, so I did a bunch of stuff, which we can talk about later. But yeah, I did a few.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. I definitely admire the people who do that kind of thing. I've,
Mm.
I look at some of the people in the IAAA, I look at their work and I have absolutely no clue how they manage to paint so quickly and so accurately, you know. So
Yeah.
maybe it comes with age. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, because I remember I used to do a lot of traditional work, like very hand drawn things and portrait painting and stuff. But then I moved to digital, and the artwork that you see behind me is also all done, painted and 3D modeled on Photoshop. So
Wow,
this art, yeah.
you
So
did that?
this art, yeah, I did that.
That is
Yeah.
insane.
So like I designed the costume. So the costume element was physically done, and the rest was 3D modeled the face. And then I took some references of the spaceship and how a character would fly in the space, and that was the idea which drove this art. So yeah, I also work in you know uh, that kind of space that it should be imaginary, but it should be scientific.
All right.
So, and you mentioned that you also do music. So do you produce music, or how is it for you?
I used to record. I used to play. Over the years, I've played in, bands here and there. I used to be 100% fascinated with music, but I'm a guitar player. But then somewhere along the way, I got carried away with art. And so music kind of took a back seat. And I realized I really need a good balance of both in order
Mm.
to see my art as, you know, as not just a job sometimes. or to not feel overwhelmed and stressed out, I need that musical outlet. So, I mean, honestly, when I was still just someone who had a natural talent for art or for drawing, but I didn't really care about it because I was bored with it because I didn't have any original concepts of my own to explore. Um, Music was my main thing. Like I would practice 8 hours a day after school sometimes. More realistically, 5 to 6 hours a day after school, almost every day, just because I was obsessed. And then I would see images in my mind. So, it's, synesthesia. Um, I've always had that where I would see colors or pictures or places or scenarios or weather. Certain music or notes or chord progressions or melodies would always remind me of it would always make me think of a certain thing, So that's what inspired my original art in the first place.
So like for the music itself, and since you have been doing that for a while now, are you interested in the same themes of astronomy, like maybe planetary sounds? Do you incorporate that kind of stuff in your music, or like music is totally different for you? Is it specific genre or something that you explore?
Music is a bit different for me. I I've always gravitated towards like progressive rock and ambient, real spacey sounding music, but I don't really explore themes of astronomy in my work. It's more spiritual, philosophical, dreamlike. Same kind of vibe as my art, but um, lyrically, it's more like abstract, dreamlike. Like I guess if you were to cross, you know, the types of influences from bands like Rush, Coldplay, Radiohead, Tycho, and various other guitar players. And it's more like I just want to create music that takes you on a journey, takes you into a dream world, or might honestly put you to sleep. But I also want to come up with music that just makes you feel alive and free.
Yeah, I mean that's the purpose of art for us. Like whatever medium do we end up choosing, it should make us feel good, right? So
Yeah.
Chris, like you've told us about your visual art and a bit about your music as well. So I would also like to know your point of view related to the light pollution, and what is your take on light, because you have been really working with these themes for years now, and you are familiar with dark skies, and you have incorporated dark sky as a theme in your work. So how do you see light, and what is the value of light for you as an artist, and what do you think about your role as an artist in reducing light pollution, if your art is a great medium to contribute towards it or not, or how the people respond to it? Maybe you can talk a bit about that.
Well, um, I honestly have not really thought about light pollution in terms of my artwork, but light pollution has been kind of one of those things over the past several years that I've noticed I get really super irritated about. Um, Noise pollution, sign pollution, light pollution. Um, I feel like I can't go anywhere. I really, I really want simplicity. I want to be able to hang out with people and have community with people without being bombarded by nonstop advertisements, by nonstop, you know, pop music being blasted in my ears while I'm trying to have a conversation over lunch with somebody. And I want to I want to be able to watch a YouTube ad without 5 advertisements being popped up in the middle of a podcast I'm listening to. And I just feel, as someone who already deals with ADHD, um, I am so overwhelmed by everything feeling like it's being forced into my ears and my eyes. And, when I want to look up at the sky and be able to just, I mean, there's times when I've gone out to my grandparents' house and out in the country and been like, oh my God, I forgot what it was like to look at the Milky Way. This is amazing. This is beautiful. But the humidity here is very high. So the light pollution seems even worse, even though I don't live by a huge city. I just want to be able to look at the sky and dream again and not feel like I'm just staring up at a big sea of brown, you know? Like I want to see the blues and pinks and I want to feel again like it's a beautiful ethereal sea that I could just fall right into, you know? And it's just really it's hard to sometimes I feel like it's hard to be an artist and dream and keep that perspective when we're so bombarded by everything wanting to block out the calmness that we want to feel. And one of the best feelings at night is turning off the light and just staring into a black room, and it's so easy on my eyes. And I want to feel that again when I look up in the sky. I really don't like the idea of certain things that certain countries want to do, like, when they talk about, here in the next 10 years we'll be able to launch giant billboards into orbit. I don't want to see billboards when I look up in the sky. I want to see what's actually up there, or China talking about they want to put giant mirrors in orbit so that they can reflect the sunlight into their city at nighttime. Why?
I mean, they are saying like we don't have enough of them here already. Like wherever you see, it's advertisement everywhere. The consumer culture is kind of taking over us, and the only thing we can connect back to is the dark skies, right? And they want to take that. They want to like take over to that as well. Yeah, that's strange.
I want to take away anything that reminds us of our humanity and our ability to dream.
Yeah.
It's like they want us to be satisfied in our zoo enclosure. But as artists, we're free spirits, and so we don't want to be contained, if that makes sense.
So Chris, where you live actually, can you talk about that specific location and how, like, because you spoke about how the light pollution is there, right? And you're not that much able to kind of see dark skies, and that is something that you would want to see, right? So can you talk about your own locality, your city, and how light pollution is there, and how has that influenced you? Or maybe there's a certain way people would look at your art, just because you are depicting all the colors of the Milky Way and the possibilities of the things that are out there. So I am interested in knowing that connection and how what kind of responses you are getting. What is your role as an artist in your own city or country?
Well, like I said, I'm in Huntsville, Alabama, in the United States, and we've been known since the 60s as the Rocket City. Actually, it's been since the 50s. Yeah, since about the mid 1950s, we've been known as the Rocket City. And we have Marshall Space Flight Center here. If you're familiar with the different space flight centers of NASA, Huntsville was honestly responsible for putting America on the moon. All the German rocket scientists after World War II came over here and jump started our space program pretty much. I mean, they took this, well, they took the space program that we already had and, or the aeronautics side of it, and then they added the space into it. You know, they turned NACA into NASA, and, you know, because of what they were doing here in Huntsville, that's how we ended up with, you know, putting Explorer 1 into orbit, thanks to, you know, von Braun. And but yeah, so this is a very space oriented city. It's still known, I mean, it's on the map as, you know, a space city. I mean, we had the US Space Command come here to Huntsville. We still have NASA. We have the mission control for the space station here in the United States, or in my city. It's a really cool city, but, and because of what I've been doing, I've become known as the rocket artist in Huntsville. It's not like we have a huge crowd or a huge community of artists, but in an engineer city, a lot of them recognize my art, you know. Oh, that's Chris Wade's work, you know. So it's kind of cool to become known for that kind of thing, especially to a city of engineers, which they're not into art necessarily, primarily, but they see my work and they get excited because it features something that they've worked on, or something that's fascinated them. And but, you know, in the city, I live like 5 minutes from Huntsville, or technically I live right across the street from Huntsville, but, you know, so you can barely see stars from here, you know. Huntsville lights up and it just makes the sky just look brown at night. And I want the sky to be a deep, dark blue, you know, full of golden lights, you know, not look like dirty dishwater, you know. So
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, I mean, I want to cause other people to be able to see up there, and also that be a reflection of how they're imagining in their mind, you know. And I want to get people back to that, instead of them just focusing on just going to work and coming home and watching the football game and then going back to work. That's not much of an existence, you know. So I think if you take away people's ability or desire to dream, then it's almost like you've taken away purpose from them. So and meaning.
I think,
Yeah.
yeah, the dreamy part and the fact that we can desire, we can dream about the future and, you know, dream about a better life. You know, these things keep us going, and, you know, everyone is so into what's happening on the TV and what's the next big trend. And, you know, we are almost just going more and more away from the dark skies and stuff. And especially because we are operating from Pakistan, and I'm sure that in USA, you still have some institutes and something going on that can talk about these important things. But we and our organization, Cosmic Tribe, you know, we are still struggling. And that's why we want to celebrate, you know, with international artists like you, and talk about ideas that, you know, how you guys are doing that with art, how much, you know, because I personally, as an artist myself, I think that, you know, that the art plays a bigger role than we can imagine, because you know, through the visual and the power of the visual, I think that is possible. But thank you so much, Chris, for joining us
Yeah.
and giving your time and explaining in depth, you know, your art, and, you know, contributing to this bigger cause that we are all trying to fight, which is light pollution, you know, an awareness to see the dark skies, right? So yeah, thank you so much, Chris, for your time.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.